One of my ongoing projects has been to paint poets that I really love. I started out as a poet, and though I had really no talent with words and became a painter very quickly because I don't have to use words, I always loved poetry. And I was very fortunate. Many years ago, I became close with the poet laureate of the United States, the poet Philip Levine, and I painted Phil's portrait. Phil was an extraordinary person who I love very much to this day and think about him often. And Phil suggested that I paint other portraits, which was great because, you know, an artist is always really hard up for models. So he suggested Gerald Stern, who was really quite extraordinary, and I love Gerald's poetry. And Gerald once said to me, "I'll sit for you only when you fall in love with me." And that was really a phenomenal moment for me because I actually do fall in love with everybody I paint. And I painted Sadoff because of Phil and many, many other poets, Sleigh and Rosebud Ben-Oni. And Gerald Stern suggested Irena Klepfisz, and Irena Klepfisz is quite extraordinary and very moving and had something also to do with my history. And of course, I'm going to show you some books. I did Yonat's beautiful book as a cover. Yonat's an extraordinary poet. I don't know if you know this. Here's Rosebud Ben-Oni's beautiful poetry book with a cover by me. Sylvia Smoller. I illustrated her book, and it's full of beautiful watercolors that were chosen for each of her poems. And Rodger Kamenetz, who's a great poet, I did a book called To Die Next to You, and I don't know in my library where the hell it is. I'm going to have to order a copy. I want to show it. And Peter Clappert, an extraordinary poet. I never painted Peter, although that's because he's not in New York City. Although maybe I'll do that from a photo one day. But his book, Circular Stairs, Distress in the Mirrors, is an extraordinary book, and I think I made a really great second edition of it. I painted David Shapiro really in a drawing. I think the delicate drawing really reflects the delicate voice of his poetry. And Ed Hirsch sat for me, and he's got a very memorable face. And Ed's poetry is quite touching and powerful. I always painted from life, but there are many poets that I didn't get to paint. I would love to paint Louise Gluck. She's quite extraordinary, and I did several drawings of Edmund Jabez, who really moves me, even though I never met him, and he's an extraordinary poet. There are many, many more, and maybe perhaps in the future I will do portraits of poets that can't sit for me. Maybe that could become a series of its own. So I welcome you all to look at these portraits I did of poets. I want to also mention William Gass, who is also a novelist and a poet and an essayist, and he also wrote about my paintings, and he's an extraordinary writer. It's all very emotional for me, this relationship that I've had with great writers, and I hope in all these portraits you can see the love that I've brought to this project and see something of their intensity. Thank you so much. Let's fucking go.